Hello, I'm Warren Mosler, number 7 on your ballot. This is the third of the 3 town hall meetings we're going to be running. The first one was in Sunny Isles at the VIA building, where we talked about the GERS and went through the full solution for the GERS. The second one was in Frederiksted, where we talked about districting. Frederiksted and the other districts would get their own senator. And we also talked about transitioning the University of Virgin Islands to Frederiksted, so that Frederiksted would eventually be the new campus. And tonight, for the third and concluding town hall meeting, I'm going to be talking about economic development for St. Croix and St. Thomas and St. John for the U.S. Virgin Islands. So let me begin with St. Croix. For St. Croix, our plan begins with facilitating, arranging, making sure we get nonstop plane service, air service from New York to St. Croix. We had that before Hurricane Hugo in 1989, and we had a vibrant economy. All the shops in Frederiksted were full, they were rented. It was a nice place to be, it was alive, there were people in the streets. We had a good economy. Right after Hugo, we lost our air service to New York, and it's never been the same. And so by bringing that back, we will then get the passengers coming in who will revive the St. Croix economy. Some people have suggested that we don't have enough hotel rooms for that, but I disagree. We don't have hotels. We only have 600 or 800 hotel rooms, but we do have guest houses and villas and people who are renting their own homes out on the likes of Airbnb and the other internet services. And when the government came in after the latest 2 hurricanes last year, I think we had up to 2,000 of them visiting, and they were all absorbed on St. Croix. So we know we have at least that many extra rooms. And there would have been a lot more if it had continued. At $200 or $300 a night, it's amazing how many people will open up their homes and how many places will suddenly become for rent to absorb these people. And I see St. Croix as the island of guest houses and villas and bed and breakfast, and somewhat like, not exactly like, but somewhat like Nantucket, where St. Thomas is more like Atlantic City with the high-rise hotels and nightlife and the crowds and that kind of action. And we've got 2 separate environments, and what you want to do is make sure you specialize. Otherwise, if you put a couple large hotels in St. Croix, you'll lose the ability to bring down the people who want the quiet guest houses, bed and breakfast, and will pay $200, $300, $400, $500 a night. If you and in St. Thomas, you can't put them in there because they don't want to go there. Okay, because that's the busy, metropolis type of place. So that is for St. Croix. Now, in addition, for St. Croix has a land where we could have an industrial park, which could take advantage of the low cost of electricity we're going to have when we get our new generators in. The cost of electricity with our new generators is only going to be about 8 or 10 cents a kilowatt. Now, our bills are much higher because we have bonds outstanding, we have all the wires to take care of, all the people, and all the overhead of WAPA, which might be $150 million a year. That has to be divided up among all the ratepayers. And so our costs are maybe 40 cents now, and over the next, I'd say immediately after the election, they'll probably be going to 45 cents and maybe as high as 50 cents by year end. And so to bring those down, we have to increase our volume, we have to increase our sales so we get economies of scale. And by getting this low-cost electricity in an industrial park, we could attract businesses by offering them, say, electricity at 15 cents a kilowatt, which would make us the low-cost provider of electricity in the Caribbean. And so you could get companies like bottling companies moving in there that have a very high cost of, that use a lot of electricity. It's a very high percentage of the cost. So it would be an advantage for them. Also, because we're outside of the Jones Act, we can use foreign ships to bring things in and out, which is a whole lot less expensive than you can do on the mainland. Lastly, for St. Croix, let me just talk about Lime Tree a little bit. They're here. We've got a contract. We want to make sure that we facilitate what they're doing so we actually get the jobs and the money. And we also have an opportunity to speak with the principals of Lime Tree. I will speak with them to make sure they put our tax rate back up to 17.5% from 12. they got their tax rate lowered to 12 on false pretenses, which was highlighted when Senator Tregedja Roach cross-examined our Commissioner Val Collins and pinned him down and got a confession out of them that they had deceived the Senate to get the vote. And Lime Tree is a big $20 billion company. That's not how they operate. When they see what their representatives did down here to squeeze that tax rate, I'm sure they'll just reverse it, put it back to where it was. They don't want to have a problem with any of the federal regulators, the SEC or any of the others. And that would be the path of least resistance, which is what we'd all like to see happen. That will add an additional $400 to $500 million in revenues as soon as they start refining the oil. So moving on to St. Thomas, we have to get the cruise ships back online, and we have to bring them back. And to do that, you just listen to the cruise ship companies. They know what they need to do. The other islands that are getting the cruise ships, listen to the cruise ship companies. They did what they were told, and they've got the business. And there's enough money to go around. They'll take their share, but there's money left for us and the other islands. They understand that. And just because they're already in these other islands doesn't mean they don't want to add another island and expand to St. Thomas. They do. They want to get as many as possible. They will build as many ships as possible to accommodate all the stops that fit their criteria. So if we just listen to them like the other islands did and construct things and arrange things and manage things, organize things to their standards, we will get them back. And it will probably take a season, but we will get them back. We've got to get our hotels back online. There are 2 years has been much too long. The holdups have not been because of construction. They've been financial, they've been managerial, they've been work-related. These, with a sense of urgency from a new governor, these things we can sit down with all these people, we can work out compromises, we can get them back online as soon as possible. Okay, so the other thing I have for hotels on both St. Croix and St. Thomas is we can use them to generate what's called VI source income, which gives us an enormous competitive advantage over hotels in the States. And I'll give an example with a hotel here in St. Croix, just for example purposes, but it would work with any of our hotels. So if you look at a hotel like the Buccaneer, they might have a seminar for brain surgeons, where brain surgeons are going to come down for a week and learn something about brain surgery. And while they're here, they're getting paid. Well, brain surgeons are very highly paid people. Many of them are making something like $2 million a year, which means they're paying $10,000 every week in federal income taxes. Well, if they come down here, where they're working to learn brain surgery while they're at the hotel, their income is generated here. That means that taxes paid on that income are our money. They will still pay their $10,000 a week for the week, if they're here for a week, to Washington, but Washington will transfer that money to us after the appropriate paperwork is filled out. And so what we can do then is give the hotels an incentive to make this happen in the first place. We could tell them, look, we'll give you half the tax advantage we get from bringing these people in. So, for example, if there's going to be $10,000 for every brain surgeon coming in, the hotel could get half. They could get $5,000. They could use that to provide incentives to bring the people in. They could lower their airfares. They could comp their rooms. There's all kinds of things they could do to bring them here that Las Vegas can't do because Nevada doesn't keep their own income taxes. They don't get the $10,000 in taxes these people pay. It stays in Washington if they have a conference in Nevada. It doesn't get returned to the states, so it can't be used. But if they're here, we get that money, and it gives us an enormous competitive advantage. Now, to expand on that just a bit, get a little more complicated, that stream of revenue can be used as the basis of securitizing a new convention center. That we could issue bonds that would be paid back out of the money that comes from the taxes coming back. Those bonds could be used to build a new convention center. And again, nobody else can do that because no one else has the money from those taxes coming back. Everybody else, we're the only ones, only the territories ourselves, like ourselves, get to keep our own income taxes. All right, now we can further expand this to sports tourism. So if you take a team, an NBA team, for example, their payroll could be I think they're all $115 million a year. That's a lot of money. That's what all the players get paid. And they all pay income taxes to Washington. And so they're paying something like $1 million every week to Washington. Well, if they come and train down here, that means they're working while they're down here training. We get those income taxes after the correct paperwork's filled out. That's $1 million a week. So if we get a team like the Spurs to train down here for 12 weeks, we would get $12 million to contribute to the new training facility down here. If they sign a 5-year contract, there's $60 million. That's far more than you need for the nicest training facility you could imagine. Okay, and they would get it for free. They just come down here, they're working, they're paying their players, they're paying their normal income taxes, but then that money comes from Washington back to us, and we would apply it to their training facility. And this would all be set up in advance with the team. Again, gives us an enormous incentive to compete, to get these teams here rather than somewhere else. And it's not just basketball, it's baseball and football. I'm here in the boxing gym. Okay, boxers might be training for a $100 million fight, where they might have to pay $40 million in taxes. If they train here, they're working here, the time they're here, that pro rata share of those taxes is our money. It could be 10, 20, $30 million. And we could then use that money to promote, to pay for their training facility, and have a lot left over for ourselves for the general fund. So we can make this a mecca of training facilities and sporting events for professional teams and capture all of their income taxes that they have to pay anyway. This is no expense to these teams, and drive our tourism product that way. And look at the kinds of people we're getting. We're getting NBA players who are making millions of dollars a year coming down here with their families, enjoying themselves, spending money, being seen around town. It's, to me, a far better way to make ourselves prosperous than to try and get passengers in St. Croix, for example, off of 5,000 passenger cruise ships trying to buy a t-shirt. To me, this is a much more preferable way to do things. St. Thomas is already set up for it, so we can do it there, but to convert St. Croix to that, I'd rather see this other types of things I've been talking about. So I've given you several avenues here for economic development, and they all, or not all of them, but most of them stem from the idea that we get to keep our own income taxes and how we can leverage that to our advantage. No one else is doing it. No one else is talking about it. It's only Warren Mosler and Ray Fonseca, our number 7 on the ballot, that are ready to do this. Now, let me give you a little bit about my background. I've been in finance 45 years. I've run my own funds. I was rated number 1 in the world for the 15 years I ran my fixed income fund. There were tens of billions of dollars in assets, never a penny missing or unaccounted for, regulated by 5 government agencies, never a step out of line, never an infraction, never any kind of correction, action necessary or penalties. And I was always completely transparent. Everybody knew where every penny went. Everybody knew all the trades, and everybody knew what I did. And that's what I am. That's my history, and that's how it'll be operated here on the U.S. Virgin Islands. Number 7 on your ballot. Thank you very much.